Good evening, everyone. This is, of course, the Rational Radicals show with your hosts, Bro Diallo and Jophesus Martin, aka Skipp Coon.
That boy said Josephus. Hey,
What does that say?
Josephus, man.
Jophesus? Josephus? Sorry, man. That PH
Jew,
sound has given me trouble all my life.
Jewish
I'm glad we
historian.
started spelling fat with the F instead of the PH after 98.
Yeah, Jewish historian. I told you my mama and Jesus like this.
Oh, bless your heart. Anyway, man, how's your week been?
It's hard, but it's fair, man. We standing up, fighting
Good,
hard,
good. All
living the
right.
dream. How about you?
Oh, it's been productive, very productive. Some good things coming, some good things going. So,
You
no
getting ready to plant?
complaints.
It's almost Good Friday. You getting ready to
Oh
plant?
yeah, I try to keep my hands off camera because this time of year, all I got is dirt under my nails. Between like April and November, I'll be out here looking like Soldier Boy at that award show when he was crying. That might be too obscure of a cultural reference for you.
It is absolutely not.
Oh, I don't want to be out
Absolutely
here.
not.
So I keep my hands down because,
Yeah.
So I got a brand new garden bin. Normally I make my bins, my raised beds. I live in the heart of the city, in the sinful cities, as y'all preachers in the South tell y'all, the dens of iniquity, and the North, the godless, liberal enclaves. So, you don't really want to plant stuff in the dirt because, it used to be a lot of industry going on up in these parts. So I always make raised beds, but this year I got like a corrugated steel bed instead of a wooden bed. So now I won't have to replace it for like a decade or more.
Oh wow.
So when before every few years, they start to warp and start to corrode. So never ignorant, getting goals accomplished.
All right.
Good. All right. So anyway, we're gonna be talking. We're gonna have a guest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't see her, but you sent her the link, right?
Yes.
Good. So we're going to talk today about confronting misogynoir, and maybe if there's time, we'll go into an open Q&A.
Yeah, it'd be great.
All right. So as you said, you want to start off with defining what misogynoir is.
Yeah, I think that's
So
really important.
I'm gonna pass the baton to you. Wait, you
Oh
don't
no,
pass off. You hand
I
off.
was giving you so like now we're showing people how the sausage is made. I was giving you an idea so you could introduce the concept
Okay.
and do all of those things.
All right.
I think it makes sense. Cause like
Okay.
you the leader, I'm following you. Like, you know what I'm saying? In the
Oh,
church, you the pastor. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like
um, okay. So I'll be
I'm a
looking.
deacon.
You can cash at me 10% of your pre-tax income. Because
Hey,
until you
bro.
do that, I'll send you my cash app. So because until you do that, I'm not gonna lead the flock. I got a beat up old Ford. The rear view windshield wiper then fell off. So if I'm gonna be ministering and pastoring, I want all the benefits.
Okay. I mean, it's
All
supposed to
right.
be in the church. I'm the deacon.
Do deacons pay tithes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, you can be a deacon then. Anyway, let's get to the topic at hand. Since we're talking about misogynoir and misogyny and sexism is fully validated and fully perpetuated by the church, the
Mhm.
Bible, God, religious tradition, dogma, and casual believers, all Abrahamic religions, sexist, male
Absolutely.
chauvinists, murder cults. But misogynoir is not a new phenomenon, but it's a relatively new name that identifies a phenomenon. It is sexism and misogyny, particularly target towards Black women, women of African descent. It is rooted in the convergence of patriarchy, sexism, and racism. And those who engage in misogynoir are not exclusively Black or white. I mean, they're not exclusively racist. Black people, Black men, and even women have evidence of engaging in misogynoir, hostility and hatred towards Black women. And what's funny is, from my observations and engagements with misogynists and those who hold contempt for Black women just for being, I've literally had engagements and gone back and forth and confronted brothers who hate the Jezebel thought, and I've had brothers who the women who are achieving and the women who live up to the standards of achievement and proper femininity. So it's really not even about the women being able to conduct themselves in such a way to dissolve or eliminate this attitude, because it's so deeply rooted in the fabric of society. Every element culture of this culture and society, the entertainment, the politics, the economics, religious / spiritual, even African spiritual systems such as the Kemetic systems, all have elements, practices, and beliefs that can be defined as sexist, misogynist, or misogynoir in terms of targeting hostility, resentment, disdain for Black women.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's most interesting about it is one of the questions that I wrote for myself in kind of processing what I thought about the idea and the concept when I was kind of preparing myself was, where is this rooted, right? Like, I wanted to read it exactly as I wrote it because I liked it. Here we go. What confuses me is how Black men get suckered into hating the only safe space we have known. Right? This idea that there's definitely a person who has never been loved or cared for by any woman or any man. Like, that person exists, right? But in my life, the safest space I've ever been is in my grandmother's lap. And one of the things that when I started really confronting, like the way that I dealt with it and the way that I participated in sexism and misogynoir, like I really felt ashamed because there was a whole world that the women who had taken care of me my whole life had lived in that I didn't know existed, right? And that was one of the things that just left me being like, man, like, these people have given me so much and I have no idea what they face.
Yeah.
And that was a time when I was like, oh, I have to do things differently.
I appreciate you acknowledging that you were or are a sexist, because I am too as well. I've had deeply seated sexist views, and even as I entered, political, social, cultural consciousness, as I began to court and date and eventually marry Black women, it took a lot of internal dissection and reconstruction in order to purge and to continue to purge and prevent falling back or lapsing back into sexism, because
It's
a lot of right,
it's the fault, right? Like, not to
right,
cut you off, but cutting you off. But like, one of the things that, like when you were talking about it's in everything, one of our jokes, and I would like other people to not take liberties that you take, because I don't know y'all like that. But like when Diallo and I are talking about, religious exchanges and what religion has done, like, absolutely, right? Like, I can clearly reflect on instances in church where we're taught to love everyone, but people in that church weren't treating the women with the same amount of love that we're supposed to be giving everybody else. And I don't quite know what that is, but now I have terms for it, right? Like, I definitely grew up seeing the contributions of women not be respected in the same way that the contributions of men were. And one of the things that I find like incredibly interesting, especially like in a professional space, because my skill set is such that is pretty feminine, right? Like
Mm.
me and build things and work with hammers and do things like that, right? But I sit at the desk all day. Uh, I read, I think things that are not manly, right? Um, I find myself being kind of, oh, that's what that is, because people don't necessarily value those things because they're associated with women. Not we don't value those things, but if it's anything that is associated with a woman, is less than. And what is
Absolutely.
that about? Like what is that about? You know, because
Well, mm,
one of the things that I had to kind of challenge myself with when I started learning more about, you know, like my sexism and you know the ways that I participated in it, was I had to recognize that when I was talking about black people, I was typically talking about black men. But there are more black women than there are black men. So we're not even talking about the majority of black people when we eliminate and oppress, you know, other folks that are working in this situation with us, right? Like, so really recognizing what it means to kind of be present and accounted for the things that I've done poorly, but also making sure that I'm making space and understanding the value of women in our community, whether they are attached to me or not. And I think that's one of the things that is really interesting, because we'll say that we love our mothers, we'll say that we love our grandmothers, we'll say that we love our aunts, we'll say that we love our daughters, but all of those women have some type of kinship or familiar relationship with us. Why don't we just love the women in our communities, period?
well, you had started speaking about the origins of sexism, misogyny, and then misogynoir. But you know, if you read some of the social science or feminist scholars, they often point back, going as far back as, you know, the human invention of agriculture and the development of centralized work in industry and concepts of private property. There
Mm,
are some works that talk about, prior to, you know, the development of this concept of ownership, worth, and value, there was really no benefit in trying to control, suppress women. But after the land started to be consolidated by lords and the formal church, um, rank and file men, everyday men, started losing more and more control over the resources that they needed to sustain themselves. And as you know, because before you could eke a living from the land, and people lived in small family groups and communities. But when the Lord says, well, this is not your land, that is not your workstation. This, I own the means of production, I own the land, I own everything around you. A lot of times men would look towards, what can I own? What can
mm,
I control? And a lot of sexist attitudes in terms of women being belonging to the fathers, or women, children being your asset, or children being your property, and women being your
mm,
property of the man who wasn't part of the aristocracy or landed gentry. But for black men specifically, because the misogynoir and sexism came, there's a big part of, under colonization and chattel slavery, we were enslaved and colonized by a culture and a value system that asserted that men are to protect women. Men, women belong to men, and your offspring, your daughters, and they are your property, your responsibility, and under your rulership, your godhead, and you control them. So black men for a long time were in a position where we were not allowed to be men identified as men. And then when we secured our manhood, we basically were still prevented from protecting, taking full ownership and protecting what was ours. And so, you know, and this is an overview. when we were in that position as Black men to say, well, Black women, my wife goes off to work for this man, or my daughter can be raped and there's no justice, we had a choice. You either have to overthrow this system and assert yourself. And when Black women are violated, and we adopted and started mimicking white men, when Black women are violated, as protectors, we must go and fight and die. Or we can define Black women as unworthy of protection. So, oh, what were you wearing? What were you saying? What were you doing at that time? And you'll see this going on now, where a lot of brothers are like talking about a woman's value, high value man, high value woman, talking about a woman's worth, but in the context of the systems and institutions of white hegemony and in the economic system of capitalism. And capitalism and white hegemony, the concept of worth and value are highly warped. So it even bothers me, and protection as well, because protection means ownership. Protection means control. So even though, as a lot of good brothers, well-intentioned brothers will come with that, I'll protect Black women, value Black women. And then when you start to distill that, you'll find that it ultimately leads to persecution, oppression, unjust control. And then it goes on to hostility, because I don't have the resources, I don't have the power, I don't have the standing to even enact this thing. So it is a very complex web of maladaptations, really.
You know, I've heard that protection is domination piece before. But I don't know what to call it when the dog in the yard and the woman is afraid and I go out there and run the dog off. Right? Like there are women in our community. Well, I can't say our because I don't know about your community. There are women in my community who are extremely excited that I'll pump their gas at night at the gas station. Like they're extremely excited about that. And I think that the English language is such that is kind of limited by opposites. But I also think that there has to be a term or a thing that shows that I won't let bad things happen to you that doesn't carry the other connotations that, you know, protection does. Cause that's appreciated where I am. And I will call that protection.
Right. That to me, here's the thing about protection. You know, I've been with my wife more than 20 years, and I do see myself as a protector. And nothing, I'm generally a very peaceful dude, you know, non or anti-violence to the core, but nothing can drive me to rage and violence more than a threat being presented upon my immediate family, you know. And I have to look at that and say, well, protection doesn't exist in a vacuum. Protection is good, but we also, more so than as men, we engage in more commerce, social, and calm social interaction. So when you say, well, I'm a protector, what does that entitle you to? You know, I used to joke with my wife all the time, you know, well, you cook dinner every single night of the week, every year. And if axe murderer ever kicks in the door, that's when I go to work. Right. You have a lot of men that will sit on the couch, or not literally, but figuratively, do nothing, waiting for this grand threat to appear, this imaginary threat that often never appears, while what's defined for the woman to do is immediate. It's not abstract, because protection is abstract. It's intermittent unless you live in an active war zone. It's intermittent. And very often things we call protection, it's just courtesy. We elevate a lot of common, humane, appropriate behaviors to inflate those things, but it always ends up being an obligation deficit where the women have to do a lot more work that's clearly defined, that's day to day, that's backbreaking, while I, as the protector, am awaiting for this ominous thing that's has the potential to occur at some particular moment, and I will spring to action. That's a deal I wouldn't take.
Yeah, I mean, and like I really love the way that you've kind of framed it, because again, there are. So I'm thinking about two women in particular. Will drive a car until whatever amount of gas they thought they had has been gone for 3 months, right? And will go out and hang out with one another and call me or another brother, and hey, somebody got to come and get us,
right?
Moving the heavy box, right? Like
right.
All of those things are things that in my mind aren't rooted in the axe murderer, right? Which I love because I talk about axe murderers all the time. It's not rooted in the axe murderer, but it also, we have feminized certain amounts of work. I'm guilty of it. And we have definitely made some work man's work. I have grown enough to recognize the sexism in that. But because I do a lot of the cooking and I'm gonna take the garbage out, but I ain't picking no flowers. Like I'm not interested in that, and that ain't man's work. I put gas in the car. I do feel obligated to drive unless I'm just clearly dozing off behind the wheel. And what you're talking about is courtesy. Like I do feel a responsibility to take some of those things off of a woman's plate. And it doesn't obligate me to anything, right? Like, I do it for my coworkers, right? Like, and you don't owe me nothing for this, because that's one of the ways that I can like showing kindness is important for me, especially to other Black folks, because I don't think we do the best job of being kind to each other. So, like, showing kindness, I think is important.
Yeah,
it's something that
well,
I value.
Yeah, I agree, but when you start to negotiate and navigate intimate interpersonal relationships, and you're fully aware of the inherent and ingrained sexism that that is infused in all human relations, all human contexts, all human relationships, then you can better navigate. Because I agree, around my home, I do a lot of the traditional male stuff, and my wife, comes to expect that of me, and I have absolutely no problem with that. But what also happens if you have a man and a woman that come together to negotiate their roles, and it works for that particular couple or that particular community, what happens, even if those roles are negotiated in the most fair and just way that speak to the interest and abilities to each person in that relationship, what we then turn around and find that the men's work is, again, like I said, inflated and elevated, and a woman's work is diminished. There are a lot of movies, I'm the protector. There's a lot of action movies about a man protecting. There are no action movies about cleaning windows, changing diapers, or nurturing. There's no nurturing movie, about taking care of the generation that's coming into life and tending to the elders who are on their way out of life. You know, like my oldest sister, you know, cared for my grandmother, you know, even though my grandmother had 5 sons. I'm not even going to sit here and waste your time counting all of her grandsons. But her end of life care, when she hit her late 80s, was done by, you know, her granddaughter.
Yeah.
She had more grandsons than granddaughters. She had five times as many sons as daughters. And that there's no heroic novels. There's nothing in the culture that elevates that work. And even when Mother's Day and this pandering holidays come where we acknowledge that, it's nowhere near the grandeur of the. So even when you have negotiated roles, because I don't define myself as a protector, even though just because you do something, you don't have to define yourself. So yes, I am a protector, but how do I define my relationship? You know, I don't define the relationship to me as my wife as one between a protector and a potential victim. Our relationship is about mutual aid, mutual cooperation, mutual support, even though we have different roles to play within that.
Yeah. That's it, bro.
Yeah. So, all right. So again, in terms of misogynoir, in terms of, we talked about protection, but we also brought up briefly value and rule. I find also a lot of times valuing women in general and Black women in particular, and Black. But here's the thing where we started ping ponging and playing this shit in terms of what do you bring to the table. And when people talk about what you bring to the table, it's not your personality, it's not your disposition, it's not your ideology. It's all about material, assets, production, and what within this system you've been able to accumulate. So I have so much trouble with this concept of know your worth. Because before you start to tell me values, whether something is high on the value scale or low on the value scale, I need to know what yardstick you're using. I need to know what is the yardstick that you're using to measure value before I can say whether or not I'm willing to even engage in this evaluation of my value or someone else's.
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah, that's insane to me. Like, you know, like these conversations, you know, between and I would like to think that they're between people that aren't smart. But a lot of times, like people that you would think are smart get suckered into a high value man conversation. Like there's just I mean it's juvenile. Like it's you know, it's boys versus girls in math class. Like I'm not interested in participating in that.
well, I just, it seems like with talking with Black people again within this economy, within this culture, within this system, when we start talking about, you know, just before your boy's Young Thug got locked up, and he was saying, you know, poor people can't nut, poor people shouldn't nut, and poor people shouldn't have babies because basically, again, worth and value. If you don't have the money to meet the material needs of the baby, forget the fact that all the material that you need, the houses, the food, the clothing, the shelter are all there, abundant all around you. But if you can't pay the toll, if you can't pay the extortion fee to get access to that things, you're not even, not only are you not worthy of reproduction, of worthy of offspring, you're not even worthy of intimacy and sex.
A human need.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, like you know, like it's a very weird thing. The idea that that your lack of access to capital determines your value when we put all of our access to capital down. I did an activity with a group of middle school girls once. I put a number line on the board and I put no numbers on it. And I asked them how much money they thought their parents made. And the numbers vary widely, widely. But nobody thought their parents made more than $100,000. And I put a number line on the number line. I put zero, and then I put a million. And middle ways I put 500,000. And I said, now based off the numbers you gave, are your parents closer to zero or a million? Zero means you have no money. You're a poor person. I don't understand how, again, otherwise intelligent people get suckered into these conversations where now we're talking about you're not rich enough to have children. Well, your mom and daddy weren't rich when you were born, and their parents weren't rich when they were born, and their parents weren't rich when they were born, and you weren't rich when your children were born.
Right.
Help me to understand what informs that decision, what informs that perspective.
Right. Well, let me say this first. Our guest, Natalie, is here, so
Okay.
I'd like to bring her in, and as we bring her in, I'd like to discuss some particular tropes or views of Black women that Black women have fallen into, and I'd like to talk about some maladaptations of Black men and Black women have engaged in based on, sexism. And another word we haven't used, I don't think enough, patriarchy, which a lot of brothers are very uncomfortable with that word. I find that brothers get outraged when you even suggest that patriarchy is a thing or patriarchy is a bad thing. Because I have some brothers that say patriarchy is necessary, good, and natural, and it's either the way evolution or God wants things to be, and that patriarchy is an inherent good, and that the problem with the Black community is the lack of patriarchy. The Black man is no longer at the helm, is the big problem. So, but before I say that, I'd like to welcome Natalie. I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself to this discussion of confronting misogynoir, and then we'll move on from there.
Good evening, YouTube and folks who are listening. I did not realize that I had to hit enter, and I have been sitting at the computer for a very long time. So that's an introduction of my technological savvy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very bad at introducing myself. I started an organization that focuses on Black girls and women, primarily in the southern part of the country. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I love Black folks. Yeah.
When Diallo asked about now, I said she's the smartest person I know, and he was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's it." And that's what I want to add. She's the smartest person I know.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate it. That was a good and short and sweet introduction. Can't ask for more. So I'm sorry, yeah, because Skipp had asked me, it's like, is she in the feed? I didn't, but as soon as I saw you in there, I was grateful to put you on for some weird reason. Skipp Coon is under the impression that if we're going to be talking about sexism and misogyny, there should be a sister present. I don't know where he gets that from.
So weird. So weird.
So now you're happy now, Skipp?
Yeah, hey man,
we're not talking about the sisters in their absence.
Yeah, hey man, that's it, man. Because like that's one of the first things that that people are going to say. Ain't no women there, and it's just like, Okay, but anyhow, but now you were introducing the idea of uh, of roles in
Patriarchy.
relationships.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, yeah, we can talk about patriarchy. Let's talk about that, and then we'll go down my little laundry list of all these things that Black women do, or these things that Black women engage in that provoke men's
Mm,
uh,
mm.
rage or condemnation, where
Ooh.
they a lot of these justifications that Black men use for engaging in misogynoir. And what I've come to find throughout the Black community, a lot of anti-Blackness, self-hate, self-rejection is now being encased in this shell of um, criticism, dignified criticism. We must do better and things of that nature, where people
Mhm.
are pretending. I mean, Cosby is probably, before he got exposed, was the poster child of doing anti-Blackness, because it used to be a time where self-hating Uncle Tom house Negroes would just come out and say Blacks ain't nothing. It was more of the Uncle Ruckus thing. There were whole books that Uncle Toms and Black conservatives, Black sellouts would just be like, Black people are inferior and thank God for white folks. That Uncle Ruckus character has real historical contemporaries. But as time went on and Black pride, Black power, Black self-love began to emerge, the people who still hated Blackness, Black people who hated Black people, Black people who hate Black women, started to say, well, I don't hate Blacks, I just think we need to do better. And then they proceed in the same surface reactionary condemnation and devaluation of African people, or Black women in particular, that the old school Uncle Toms did, but they pretend they're doing it for the betterment of us as they tear us down. So anyway, that's too much of that. But let's talk about patriarchy.
Like Barack Obama.
Um, yes, our brother, he was fighting for us as soon as we get our act together. You know, which because of we're, what do you say? We're our own worst enemy. That type of absurdist fallacy. But patriarchy. Um, we, I don't think we could argue that the society, the dominant society, white folks, are patriarchal. The people who enslave, colonize, indoctrinate, and continue to oppress us are patriarchal. But is the Black community patriarchal, being as, which is arguments I've got from the meninist, or the alpha males, or the sexists, or I call them Afro sexists, or mommy issue militants. I got so many names. That's all I do. All I do is play dozens. But those brothers say the Black community is matriarchal, and we've also had white scholars, Daniel Moynihan, the Moynihan report, saying the Black community is patriarchal because they have single mother headed households, and therefore single mothers who have no power, who have no economic power, who don't control the means of production, who don't dictate, control, or direct policies, don't determine how resources are distributed. But because they've been left alone to raise their children without support or a partner, they are now a patriarchal or matriarchal power in the community. And I'm sorry for answering the question as I ask it. I'll do better. But is
But
the
are you
Black
though?
community a matriarchy or a patriarchy?
I want to rewind first to for clarification. Did you say that you don't believe that the dominant group, white folks, aren't patriarchal?
No, I said the opposite.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay, okay,
undeniably patriarchal.
okay, okay,
I mean, it's encoded in their policies, encoded in their laws, and
okay, okay,
demonstrated in their history. So yes, it
okay.
is not only patriarchal, but all elements: the
Yeah,
religion, the economic system, the social, cultural. Yes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we are too. I don't think um I think that people tend to think because women are present And you can find a Black girl and a Black woman, you know, every time you turn your head. And you know, shiftless Negroes leave the house, and you know, making babies everywhere, and you know, whatever. I think because of that, people mistake that to mean um even that women tend to live longer, right? That we are matriarchal. I agree with you though that without any substantive power is really just still a lot of it's just still a lot of women. It's a lot of girls. It doesn't equate to anything but numbers. That's my thought. That's my initial thought.
Yeah. I grew up in a lot of spaces, and I've worked in a lot of spaces. I've been mature in a lot of spaces where women are in charge, right? Like women are the final decision makers. Because we talked earlier about, you know, my skill set and things that I've done professionally. Um, but I don't think the woman being the manager at Wendy's takes away from the fact that after you get past the woman that is the manager at Wendy's, the other decision makers are men, right? Just because the women at the church carry a lot of power that's silent, and they can do things and say things and make things go away or make things appear, right? Doesn't mean that when you get beyond that church structure, there aren't men making those decisions. The absence of men in a house doesn't mean that women won't find themselves feeling it necessary to defer to a man as he appears in the house. So yeah, I don't think that we are. I do not think that Black people are matriarchal.
Or
Be-
I'm sorry to cut you off. Or to when you're on a podcast, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to cut the men off. I'm sorry.
that's right, because you're an uppity woman. You see what I'm saying? That's
Yep.
why.
Thanks
That's
for
why I
proving
wanted
our
her on
point.
here. You see that? She a woman that don't know her place.
Unless you intend to disparage women and talk about how right we are and how wrong women are, then feel free to interrupt
Right, and giggle a lot.
so we can get
But I
this
think
video to a million.
it's not just about the absence of the men in the household, right? Using that example, it is it is also the ways that we have all been steeped in this patriarchy, so that even if there isn't a man who comes and goes, for example, that in a lot of ways a woman will act in the ways of patriarchy because she's been steeped in it. So the ways that she engages with other people, even other women, replicates patriarchy.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm a living example of that. I was raised by my mother, single mother initially, and then I was later adopted and raised into adulthood by my single grandmother. And I lived in a housing project. Shout out to East Hills Village. Um, I lived in a house project where well over 90% of, I think, out of hundreds and hundreds of units in that housing project, maybe the two or three of them actually had a two-parent or male-headed household. And in that situation and in that community, it was patriarchal norms, patriarchal values, patriarchal standards were strictly followed and enforced. Just like there were no literally, there was one white family in my housing project, and it was a white woman who had a daughter by a Black man, and her family disowned her, and that's when she moved to the projects. But there was one white family, but no white folks, but racism and racial hierarchy and anti-Blackism was there. But as I say, even with my own grandmother, may she rest in peace, in terms of who could come and go more freely from the home, the different roles and responsibilities. You know, I grew up in a house of mostly males, and you know, for many of my young years, I didn't wash a dish. When I went off to college, I didn't know how to properly separate laundry. The dishes and the folded laundry just kind of materialized in my space. And so even single mother households, especially if it's mothers who are raised Christian or Muslim, mothers who want to raise up their children to be accepted and embraced by, because my grandmother was very focused on the success of me, my brother, and my sister. And so she knew that we had to follow the norms and the standards of the society. And my sister had to be ladylike and we had to be manly in order to go on and achieve. So I think it's absurd, even though I've had these debates where they talk about, well, the Black community, as white scholars and brothers from around the way, want to argue that the Black community is not patriarchal, not dictated, controlled, and harmed by patriarchal norms and standards is absurd. And patriarchy is not natural. It is artificial, and it has to be not just imposed by our beliefs and our values, but it is imposed through violence, injustice, and ultimately harms men as much as it harms women.
I absolutely agree with that.
So now we can move on. Now, I think we will stop hearing about this rhetoric, which has been going on for over half a century about the Black community being matriarchal. I think we've settled that once and for all. They will change all the textbooks and all of the podcasts will stop that. Let's go with these various tropes that are asserted or imposed on Black women, making them unworthy of our respect, our protection, even our intimate connections with them. And how, whether or not there's any validity or to these concepts, right? So first I want to start with, and just guys to take it, because there's a few of them here, and you guys can introduce some too as I go down the list. Number one, this concept of the thought, that these sisters out here, they don't want to be wives, they don't even want to be loyal girlfriends, they out here want to thought it up. And that's the problem with today. Whereas our grandmothers, our aunties were all saints. All of us who were born in between, since from Reconstruction to 1985, all of us were conceived through Immaculate Conception. Women didn't start thoughting in the 90s when they started thoughting, and that is the downfall. So the concept of the thought. Or the Jezebel or the harlot. I mean, that's just a modern term to describe an old phenomenon dating back to the plantation.
Yeah, I don't know what. I was talking with my mom once. I don't remember what exactly we were talking about. Maybe some show we were watching, some thought, on a television show or something like that. And I said to her at some point, I said, we're not gonna act like grandma wasn't liberal with her love. Like, we're not gonna do that. My grandmother had 6 children and by 3 different men. Like, we're not gonna do that. And my mom just laughed and she was like, "You're right." I think more than our obsession, because I think it is an obsession, more than our obsession with the thought, whatever it is that we want to call, whatever we're calling the person at the time, is one, this idea that we're better than somebody. Then there is, we remove from people any opportunity to have a different narrative about themselves, whether them being promiscuous, we'll just use it, is true or not, right? We remove from them any opportunity to be something different at some other point in their lives. which then is also very much stripping them of any agency. So if we have the opportunity and the leverage and the agency to write our own narratives about our own lives, it confuses me why we think that we get to be the author of other people's narratives and redemption stories or villain stories, or whatever it is. It's a thing. And actually, the older I get, the more it bothers me than when I was younger. In some ways you tend to get a little more conservative the older you get, and in that way, that particular trope bothers me more now than it did when I was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah. Well, Skipp, you're a rapper, so we know. Don't even.
Right.
I don't think you should speak on this topic. We know how y'all rappers do.
Listen, man, as I've told everybody,
Popping bottles.
As I've told everybody, a woman don't want to talk to me about nothing but the community, man. Like, maybe I'm just not attractive enough that I got to experience thoughts, but that they just want to talk about the community, and if I come and talk to their class, like they ain't never want to. But this is what I think is interesting. I don't think people should just be having sex because that's dangerous, right? Like, I do think we should be able to show some type of restraint and maturity when it comes to like sex, right? But I also don't quite understand why people are obsessed with what people they're not having sex with are doing sexually. Like, who has a baby by who is none of my concern, because my children don't live in the house with that person. And they had sex and they made a baby. I don't really know what that has to do with me and how I should see their value based off of that one-time decision. I think, as I said earlier, when we were talking about, you know, when we were talking earlier about sexism and the things that I've done and the way that I viewed it and the mistakes that I made and the things that I had to unlearn, I just think it's very interesting that there are people that would think that a man having sex with a lot of people is different than a woman having sex with a lot of people. And where I think my argument oftentimes is confusing for people is because I think both parties need to grow up a little bit more and to stop just doing that part of it. Like, if a woman has had what got me in trouble before 30 sexual partners,
you said 50.
It was 30. But
okay.
50, it applies. It's the same. I'm looking at her the same way I'm looking at a man that has had 30 or 50 sexual partners. I don't think you make good decisions because you clearly don't have anything to do but that. And I don't know. Like, I just think it's really interesting that, like, and I've been guilty of placing value. A good story is a good friend of mine named Mary Sneed. Mary Sneed, and this was years ago, when Kanye, that man left. That boy sick of this. All right, we still on here though.
He's sick of you. He was like, "This is dumb. He sounds ridiculous."
It's because I go to church. But Mary Sneed was
talking. You don't.
Well, according to him, I'm just a dumb Christian. When he found out you a Christian, you're gonna be a dumb Christian too. But anyhow,
Well, don't tell him because you said I'm smart,
yeah.
and let him think I'm smart.
Okay, okay. All right. He didn't hear none of that. All right.
Sorry.
So Kanye West and
You offended
Amber
him
Rose.
because he's probably slept with 31 people.
Yeah, I'm hella offended. You hear, trying to, put parameters and limitations on how
I
people get off.
Yeah, hey man, live your life, but just don't live around me.
Why?
But hold on, Kanye
Uh,
West was dating Amber Rose, and then Amber Rose started dating Wiz Khalifa, and I was like, oh my god, she just go from rapper to rapper. Oh my god, this like a million negative things to say about this woman who I never met. And Mary Sneeze said, but you only can name two people that she's dated. What do you know about her besides that? And I was like, oh, you right. I sound like an idiot. And that was it. And I think more people need to be willing to accept that they have just drank the Kool-Aid and been duped into a thing that they don't know why they think it, and they need to better examine it to figure that part of it out.
well, let me say this about it, because I think that thought, body count, hoes, and all that stuff is just constructs that have next to no real meaning aside from being able to control or devalue other people. I was reading an article written by a sister I know personally, really smart sister, but she also works as a dominatrix, or as now if we say sex worker or whatever. But she works as a dominatrix, and she once wrote an article saying that some of the most humane, kind, loyal people she's ever engaged with were the let me just speak. We're all adults. The freaks, the people that were into, stuff that other people would gasp and clutch their pearls about. Whereas she said the chaste people with the high standards and wait till marriage type people were some of the most self-absorbed and and then I just kind of went down my own friendship and interaction line. Not to say that I was ever there. I'm what they would call in that community vanilla, in terms of I don't get down with all that stuff. But I'm like, wow, I know
It
some
makes
people that know. Uh-huh. I know some people that were into, really getting off, and I know people that were like chaste. And I'm like, wow, that's actually been my experience as well. That's a pretty curious thing. So I think people that are, I think, open sexuality, open, and not out here trying to live up to some artificial standards, tend to be overall more open and more freely giving in other areas of their life. But all is said is that, but I don't conclude that, whatever you do in your bedroom doesn't affect others, and how you having kids doesn't. I do believe that there are resonating impacts around. I think cultivating relationships, however those relationships are formed, whether it's you and by yourself, you with one other person, or you in a huddle of a whole bunch of other bodies, if those relationships are not engaged in with from a perspective of mutual respect, mutual support, and upliftment and
integrity.
encouragement, it's very damaging. And even, I mean, how many strictly monogamous relationships that have damaged generations of people?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think these numbers and these thoughts in terms of body count really tells you anything about the quality of a person's relationships and the reverberating impacts that their interactions with others will have on other people. So I don't focus on the content. No, I don't focus on the quantity in terms of sexual, intimate relationships. You got to focus on the quality. And I would rather have a woman who has experience and interactions wide ranging than and knows how to nurture, protect, engage humanely, and develop other people, do mutual support and development, than have a chaste or virginal or a woman with limited experience that does not know how to engage in healthy relationships. And one more thing, I think a lot of this purity is born out of religion, and a lot of this concept of purity, I want to be the first and only, does a lot of why you find no religious formation that has that purity concept, virgin bride, and all that shit, feeds a lot of this predation. A lot of this predation on young women, especially in terms of assaulting, where men have this concept that sex makes a woman unpure. And so you have to go and find someone who is pure, which often correlates to younger and younger girls. So purity of abstinence and the sinfulness of sex is a warped concept that I think feeds a lot of abuse. So I'm going to move on to the next misogynoir condemnation leveled against Black women. Now that we've gotten past it,
you gotta just cut him out like you did me.
I'm sorry. No, were you trying to say something?
No, because he's trying to move on, and
if we still got some more,
Yeah. Well, to the end of what you said, I think there can also be some pretty direct lines drawn to issues of dominance and control. A lot of that, but then I think back to what I was saying about how for me as I get older, ironically enough, I becoming, I don't know that I would ever have considered it conservative, but we'll use that word. I'm becoming less conservative. And I think a lot of that is because I see very clearly the ways that people associate value to things that don't necessarily, where value doesn't necessarily equate, and my value system might look different than your value system. And so how can I judge you? How can I make determinations about who you are, what you may or may not do, believe, choose other words, but I can't do that when I don't know what you've been through. I don't know how you came to the conclusions you've come to make the decisions that you're making now, like that kind of thing. And so I just think we have to be careful about the ways that we judge people around that kind of thing. And I'm gonna say, I think honestly, one of the reasons that one of the ways that men get permission to do that kind of harsh thing is because we women do it probably even worse than men. That slut, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. So true.
No,
yeah,
don't,
like I said.
Don't say that that's true.
Huh?
You can't say that it's true.
I mean, I hear it, but like I said, yeah, from my point of view, I care more about the quality of relationships than the quantity of relationships. If an individual has a lot of partners in the past and those partners have not been abused, exploited, and taken for granted, I would much rather engage with that person as a friend or I can't say partner. I don't want my wife to kick in the door, but I'd much rather engage with that person as a human being than someone who's had maybe one partner and they've treated that partner like shit, and that partner is in recovery and therapy after having been intimate with them or been in a long-term relationship. So it's all about the quality of one's interactions. And I do believe there are people who are capable of having multitude of quality relationships, and there are people who are not capable, that they have to kind of orient. And I don't think one is more valuable or more desirable than the other. But moving on, how about this concept that women, black women, too masculine, too manly, too dominant? There is a whole community on social media that talk about Megan the Stallion is actually secretly a man. And that's why she calls herself a stallion instead of Megan the mayor. And they dissect these photos of her on stage and highlight the bulge and that's in her various costumes. But it's not just limited to, you know, hands on my knees, shaking ass on my dachi. It also was an ongoing mockery and even serious discussion that Michelle Obama, and you can't get more educated, dignified, and proper acting, you know, even though I have contempt for the Obamas, but I understand that the attacks weren't ideological and political against Michelle. They were rooted in misogynoir, that she was too men. And I'd see online people enlarging photos of her neck, pointing towards an Adam's apple, create photoshopping bulges under her dress and things of that nature. So in terms of misogynoir, as we move from thought, this whole thing that there's this whole thought cultures and black women are thoughts, that black women are too masculine, too aggressive, too dominant.
Oh, they did that to people do that to Serena Williams. They did that even back to Sierra. They used to do that to Sierra too.
Yeah. And it again, it goes all the way back to colonization and slavery, where phrenologists and other pseudoscientists and scientific racism would talk about the sexual dimorphism of the Negroid race, in terms of sexual dimorphism and anatomical differences between males and females, where there's the Negroid male and the Negroid female have very low sexual dimorphism, where saying that the Negroid female is essentially a man, or the Negroid man is essentially a woman, and whereas the Aryan or the Nordic man and woman are embodiments or the standard or the model for femininity and masculinity. And even that was, and then the concept that God made Adam and Eve, the first man and women were white women, and black people and non-white people were the product of sin, the sin of Ham, the curse of Ham. And then when science determined that the black woman was the mother of all and destroyed literally thousands of years of religious sexism and religious misogynoir, they turned around and said, well, yeah, of course she's the mother of all because she's a primitive ape and we are refined. So we're not the original people. When they said for years, we are the first man and woman was a white man and woman, we are the original people, which makes us superior. Now they say, well, we're the very last people. So we're the highest level of people. So anyway, speaking to this black woman's masculinity, aggressiveness, dominance.
Josephus dimorphed fairy, I'll allow you to speak first.
Yeah. You know what was interesting about all of these dimorphed men, women, is that they're all really attractive. Serena before, Sierra, Michelle Obama. I mean, like, if we taking the politics out of it and we're just looking at, you know, like, these are really attractive women. And I think in hearing you describe that, I definitely hear white male fragility, right? Like, because these women look tougher than me. It got to be something wrong with them. So nah, like, that's not, I don't know. I mean, that sounds crazy. And even when people are like, oh, that woman is too manly, basically what it sounds like is you're unable to subdue her. Like, she's not interested in you and now you trying to make something be wrong with her. And yeah, that's interesting. And to just make it a little bit larger, is also like very stupid. Um, because I don't have the lived experience of a black woman that I have been involved with romantically not being supportive and kind and soft. So like I don't know what them dudes talking about. They probably just not that tough.
I think it's a very white dominant way of dismissing a person, a woman. I think some of it is, I do agree. Part of me does agree with Josephus's assessment that um, it's because in some way a a man doesn't see a way that he could subdue or conquer, or whatever it is, conquer in whatever way, physically, romantically, whatever it is. These women, the ones that you've named, the unnamed ones, just like whoever it is on the street that gets talked about in the same way, who isn't famous. I also think, though, that there is a part of what is really important for white dominance is to other um, anyone or anything that looks like it might get to be, for a lack of a better word, too popular, amass too much popularity, too much power, political cachet, um, etc. I can't think of other words, but and so it's another way to subdue the person. So there's this thing like, oh, the thing that makes a woman is her desirability. And so if I can convince people that you are not desirable, because what is desirable about a woman is that a man wants her, but clearly a normal man, air quotes, a normal man wouldn't want you because you're probably a man. Um, that is, that's one of the ways that I'm trying to counter whatever it is about these women that is a threat to me. So even when it's not a white man doing the thing, because we have been, as we said, steeped in patriarchy, we've also been steeped in white dominance. It's just, without interrogation, it's just kind of the way that we roll. And so it's just like, yeah, there's something wrong with this thing that I don't understand. This person I don't understand. Even when there's nothing to about Michelle Obama, as you all are, like absent politics, or Megan the Stallion, not the mayor. Like there's nothing to understand. Like she just is. They just are. And you can get to know them in as much as you can, a person that you would never meet. But like there's nothing to dissect about them. I don't have a way to wrap up those rambling thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it came together quite coherently. I
I told
appreciate
you she
that.
was brilliant.
But I have to, and finally, I'm going to lead on this note. Since I am wearing a cardigan and sipping tea, I have to go full liberal. Masculinity and masculinity are just constructs.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that you weren't a real man if you didn't wear silk stockings, high heels, makeup, and wigs. You know, you were not. That was the most
Yeah.
macho shit. Like you weren't popping. You know that. So that shit evolves over time. There was a time where teaching was a man's profession. There was a time where cooking and certain being a chef was a manly profession. Now the woman does the cook. So there's these roles, these standards, these so you really begin to run yourself ragged trying to live up to these ever ebbing and flowing and evolving standards, you know, in terms of, oh, or are you a manly man? Are you a feminine woman? And or are you a feminine man? So a lot of those things are again about social control. They have
Hmm.
no basis in science or no basis in nature. They are just what humans have done. And I don't have a problem with human inventing things or implementing things for to make the world more navigable, you know, in a more functional space. But when those inventions begin to oppress, repress, dehumanize, I think we have to be willing to amend or purge those things. Moving on to the next point, it's what I call displacement. And again, these are things that arguments that I've had with misogynoir, a misogynist, that I've read, that I've talked to face. So this concept that women are taking our jobs, women are doing men's work, women are
Like
basically
Mexican.
displacing. Huh?
Like
What was that?
Mexican. Like
Yeah,
Mexican.
yeah.
And then
But it's
Jackson, the Mexicans from Guatemala.
right. Well, I even once was talking to this brother, and he started sending me all this information about grants, scholarships, set asides that were specifically for Black women. And he felt that, you know, there's this concept amongst many oppressed groups that the white man only has so many justice tokens. And for every justice token he gives to immigrants, he gives to gay folks, he gives to women, every justice token he passes out, then that's less justice token for the group that didn't get that token. So instead of fighting to remove the ability or power for the white man to dole out justice to anybody, when he shouldn't be the arbiter of justice, resources, and the ability to live and sustain ourselves, instead of overthrowing his power, we begin to rally around who's worthy of the white man's resources and consideration and justice. Like there's only a limited amount of justice the white man has in his justice pouch. And so, you know, who's more worthy of that? So anyway, the fact that a lot of misogynists think that they're being or feel or have stories about how they're being displaced or replaced by women are women as they elevate within this system, as they get concessions and tokens from this system or become tokens of this system. Are they displacing Black men or getting hold of things that normally would have been set aside or given to Black men?
No. Next.
Okay. I mean, you'd be surprised. A lot of discussion like, oh, sisters getting everything. Sisters are everything instead of sisters are getting everything, taking jobs from us, that you know, taking our jobs. It's like you said, it's a lot of rhetoric for them, but you hear in the manosphere, you know, they already kicked us out of the house and won't allow us to raise and nurture our children. But now and then, after they kicked us all out of our home, out of the home, to kick the Black man out of the home, then they went about kicking the Black man out of jobs and school, kicking Black men out of school and taking away other opportunities that belong to us and taking it for themselves.
School.
Grab the white man by the collar and say,
I
give
hadn't
me
heard.
that grant. Yeah, that's a strong, you know, you got to watch Fresh and Fit. You got to follow.
Hey, man, look.
You
that's
got to
my
follow.
boy's name, man. Look, you know, Buddy named Charleston White be talking about he gonna call the police on rappers. He said, man, them boys some weenies. And I could not stop laughing at that. Like, I don't understand this hatred of women. It's just so bizarre to me.
I just told you their thoughts, they're too masculine, they're displacing us.
And they taking our jobs.
Right.
But who
After
hiring
kicking
them
us
for
out
those
of the
jobs?
house.
Yeah, but who hiring them for the job? Shouldn't we be mad at the person that's hiring?
No, because if we go after the people who's hiring us after we defeat the black woman, who's going to give us the jobs? You want to leave the job giver, as Scheherazade Ali said, the white man is the god of jobs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you don't want to
my
anger
bad.
the god of jobs. You just want to make sure the god of jobs understands that you're more worthy of the job than immigrants or women.
Say less.
Yeah.
Say
And the
less.
next trope.
I was about
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
make a joke about. I was gonna make a joke about how I would not like to take Josephus's job because I was pretty sure I made more money than he does, but then I would probably be proving like several points that would make me too masculine, probably too mouthy, some other trope. So I did not make the joke.
Man, because let me tell
But
you
if you're making more money than him, then you're in his job currently.
I love that question that them folk would be like, if a woman married and her husband lose his job, should she step down from her job so he can have one?
Or just so that they can or take a job where she makes less money than him.
No. Like the woman in this situation, the woman was like the CEO of a company.
Mm.
And the man lost his job wherever he was. Is she supposed to resign as CEO so this man off the street can just be the CEO? And I just people are stupid, man.
Yeah, but
it's fascinating to watch.
We're laughing, but there is within the misogynist manosphere, there are ongoing discussions and assertions that black women are displacing black men and therefore breeding every success that a black woman has is one that was denied a black man. So
that's really sad.
Yeah, and then we move on to one that makes me laugh often is the concept of gold digger. What do you bring to the table? That black women are economic liabilities. So even if you are a high value man, as the late Samuel said, you know that you are a liability, and if you want to be with a man of status, then now somebody wants to talk about misandrist. But anyway, if you're a man of status, then women can often be a liability or a loss. You know, whether it's putting you on child support or
you said woman, but a black woman.
Yeah, well, we're talking about black women today. Yeah,
okay.
You know, so, yeah.
Is there another kind?
The gold digger trope where black women will be an economic liability.
I can be honest and say that I've sat in a mini barbershop where there have been men talking about gold diggers, and all of the gold we had could be combined and fit onto a spoon.
Right. Yeah. To me, it's more ironic. We're mad at women who want whatever we have now, but you know, we're literally looking at the white man who is the true gold digger. And if you really want to, you know, if you start with, you know, if there's a grizzly bear knocking down your door and you put all your energy towards the mouse in the corner, you know. But even that's not a good analogy. The bottom line is black men and black people, we have been robbed of our wealth and resources. And if you think it's the sister who wants to come in and get a cut of your income, your tax return, as opposed to the oppressor who controls the minds, the means of production, and has an economic stranglehold, not just on us as individuals, but us as a people and our entire resource-rich continent and communities. It's really an absurdist and escapist point of view. But Black women being gold diggers is another. These are what I think Black men tell themselves. And I mean, I could go on and on, but I also want to talk about Black women's responses to misogynoir as we go through these justifications that I have observed misogynists use to say, well, this is what's wrong with women. This is what women do to provoke our ire, our hostility, our hatred. And these are the things that Black women need to work on and fix. You know, and if they did all that, then there wouldn't be no problem with these females. So
what do we need to do?
Maladaptations. Well, before we talk about what needs to be done, can we talk about what Black women currently are doing in response to, well, some of the maladaptations, not the right things women are doing, but some of the things that could be defined as inappropriate or ineffective responses?
Well, I think they call them pick-me's. There are definitely people who just try to adjust to women who try to adjust to these ridiculous expectations and creation of new norms, playing small, not living up to their fullest potential, or even honoring their curiosities. That's definitely a thing. Seeking permission to do things is a thing.
I'm sorry. Here's the thing about pick-me's, because I understand what a pick-me is, and Lord knows I've seen them. I've sat there with my jaw dropping. But I think I've also seen the pick-me title. It's kind of like woke. It gets thrown a lot. I see a lot of times in circles where, you know, I'm just observing sisters have a discussion, and basically pick-me can be any woman that disagrees with me on a myriad of topics.
Oh yeah, I can agree with that too.
It's kind of, and the same thing with simp. You know, a lot of dudes, if you're discussing, especially things related to interpersonal or intimate relationships with the opposite sex, if you take a position on that the other person disagree with, then you're a simp. You know, so I agree that I understand that the pick-me trope, but the problem is, I think pick-me, as I see it used, I just see it being just thrown at any and every sister that takes any position that doesn't resonate with whatever the popular position in that discussion circle or that social media feed or that community meeting. So and it's really sad, because as I was talking to sisters, there are pick-me's who women who actively degrade, downgrade, or validate many sexist and misogynist tropes in order to carry the favor of sexist men, which I totally agree with. That's the pick-me, and I just think it's unfortunate that the term and the meaning has been so diluted that it gets thrown around so lightly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And another, can we talk about for a moment feminism? And I would have to call feminism and where Black women started to assert that, well, we have Black feminism. And the feminism, to the extent that feminism seeks to, equality within the systems and institutions of global white domination and capitalism. So to the extent that Hillary Clinton and Madeleine Albright can get on the stage and say, we're feminist, to the extent that CIA agents, or women who are cops or soldiers, like we all remember the Abu Ghraib photos where the woman was participating in torture of the prisoners and things of that nature. So this concept that men preside over a patriarchal system that is not just patriarchal, but profoundly unjust, genocidal, oppressive, and that women rise to positions within that system, CEOs, presidents, administrators. And time after time, it is demonstrated that once women rise to those positions, they begin to engage in the exact same behaviors, patterns that the men whom previously occupied that position got involved in. So I often think that feminism, aside from more like radical feminism or anarcho or communist feminists, as opposed to as what feminism has become in the United States, the girl boss trope.
Yeah. Because I think so much of it is really not about so much of that is not really about, and never was, even though maybe they thought it was, right, about justice or equality, but it was just about an opportunity to navigate systems the same way white male counterparts do. Like that's what it was all about. That's what it was all ever about. And so I think, again, without real interrogation of power or consideration for the ways power acts or shows up in community and engages with community and other systems, like what's the difference between feminism and then adding the adjective black in front?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, literally, they're painting a cruise missile pink. Or I remember there was this article about an all-female attack helicopter squad for the U.S. Navy, and they were using that not only to show the awakening or the progressiveness of the U.S. Armed Forces, but also as a recruitment tool to bring more. And also, it was a feminist victory that women were allowed to serve as frontline soldiers in the U.S. Armed Forces. That
you can now be killed first too,
right? And that was considered a feminist victory. That women before were relegated to supporting roles, that women now can fully engage in the atrocities of the U.S. military imperialist armed forces. So a lot of components. And then, something's bad when it starts to fracture. Something is not really as it starts to fracture in so many ways that it's almost it gets to a level of absurdity. Well, I'm a feminist, I'm a black feminist, I'm a post-constructionist feminist, I'm a new age feminist, I'm a second term, third term, fourth term feminist, where it goes in all these directions. When you had a viable, because there is not just oppression, but gender specific oppression. And as Kwame Ture articulated, that every functional revolutionary organization should allow for spaces within the larger umbrella, youth groups, elders groups, for queer and gender nonconforming people, women, and all those groups, subgroups should be able to rally and advocate within the organization as aggressively as they rally and fight within the larger society for justice and their position and status to be recognized and elevated. So, but I see feminism and people, and I used to do a lot of essays critiquing feminism, which I think had allowed me into the manosphere, because people thought, well, oh yeah, this feminist and rhetoric, oh, feminism has ruined the Black family. Feminism has destroyed the Black community. Feminism has destroyed Black men. When feminism has done none of that. But what I can argue, that feminism has exploited the justified rage and the justified causes of Black women to feed white women and to advance white women into getting not just equal standing within the systems of white hegemony and capitalism, but also their equal share of the spoils of capitalism and imperialism. And that's ultimately what feminism has done.
That was his purpose.
Right. And shout out to the womanist and Africana womanist, which I don't think Black feminism has really stepped up to be a real alternative or departure from that. But I think Africana womanism and that movement, as it defines, as it does acknowledge the class division, it's anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist components that are necessary for any real societal transformation for the status and oppression of women.
No, you just do the white women thing otherwise and wear mud cloth sometimes.
And what about divestment? Is that still a thing? Where Black women divest?
You can't do that. How you gonna get all the stuff that you want? I mean, but you could just go to Ghana though.
Well, no, well, it's not. It's specifically divesting from Black men. I've had some sisters that I've known for quite some time that told me, "Look, I'm not interacting with you or any Black men anymore. I'm divesting." And it's a counter to, you heard of the man go thy own way.
Ghana.
It's brothers over there.
Yeah, that's different. You know, like passport bros.
Yeah. That's what, like, the man go their own way, and yeah. So that's another thing that I understand the motivations and the impetus, but I just don't see how it is a sustainable or viable solution or counter.
It is. It's definitely sustainable, because what happens is it ain't no Black people at that point. So you in like anti-Blackness. Now you just got a new category of people that's like, it'll be like you got a Black mama.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, I don't see or hear it as much as I used to, and maybe it's still a strong movement amongst the
I don't know if it was ever a movement, but I will say it's something that, like, we've talked about a lot offline, Diallo, is that, like, when you get off the internet, the world looks so different. Like, I forgot divestment was a thing because I'm not on any of the socials anymore. That's like, oh yeah, I do remember when people was like, oh, they just not gonna date Black men. But then they will always complain that none of these other groups of men wanted them.
Yeah, well, like I said, I understand it. I can even appreciate it. I just don't think it's viable. It may work for some individuals, but as far as being a challenge to the overall systemic oppression, you know, that's just like an individual saying, I'm moving to Ghana to escape racism. You know, or you know, there's really no sanctuary on the world. There's nowhere to run to.
They do that.
You know? And another that's related to, I think it's more related to the whole girl boss trope. Women, like Black people, can elevate, do capitalism better, and women can elevate from sexism and misogyny if they do capitalism better. So the whole representation Black Mermaid.
Representation matters.
Black Mermaid, Wakanda Forever, a black woman who's vice president to a long-standing racist Jim Crow Joe, black Supreme Court justices that are basically lame ducks. So black women in places of authority,
Without any authority.
proposed as a solution or a counter to it. So anyway, we could go on and on where I do think that this is a problem we acknowledge. Patriarchy, sexism, misogyny, and misogynoir are real problems. And, I talked about some of the ways women are physically, not just emotionally, physically, socially handicapped, but women are physically injured, whether it's intimate partner violence or medical neglect, maternal mortality rates. Women are losing their lives. These attitudes and these positions and these tropes about containing to black women are losing their lives and or having their lives not diminished or having lifelong illnesses, chronic diseases that plague women as a direct result of sexism and misogyny. But some real viable solutions as opposed to just reactionary responses that don't really target the problem, such as what I mentioned before, Africana was womanism, or what's been called radical feminism, but feminism that is anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, that doesn't seek to participate in the oppressive system or elevate within the oppressive system, but that one that seeks to smash or destroy the existing system. So not girl boss, girl CEO, but no CEOs, no bosses. Anarcho and another of anarcho feminism. And again, the zero tolerance policies in terms of exposing. And I really appreciate. I see a lot of sisters doing work where a lot of these artists, a lot of these prominent public figures that come out with anti-black women views, they lose contracts, they lose standing, their shows lose ratings, their streamings get diminished. I see more informal organizing to make sure there is no safe space for those who engage in those practices and attitudes. And I really appreciate, and I personally participate in that. If the sisters don't fuck with you, I'm not gonna fuck with you. If the sisters got a problem with you, then I got a problem with you. Or I guess some would call that cancel culture, which I don't like that trope, but to the extent that it's doable.
Just check out.
Right. But I see sisters really going hard in terms of seriously, if you are it's just guys, a lot of times, especially coming up in the 90s, in the NWA, Death Row Records, gotta let a hoe be a hoe, and it just misogyny was par for the course in hip hop. Whereas there are songs and lyrics and artists that were at the top of the hip hop charts in the early 90s that can't have a career today saying those things and engaging with those tropes. So you looking like you don't agree.
I think probably a person could make a song with "Gotta Let a Hoe Be a Hoe" in the chorus.
And depending on who made it, it will become an anthem for women. I think one of the things that we have to be very careful of is not allowing that vocal minority to be thought of as too powerful. Mm-hmm. Because the same women that are insert rapper is misogynistic for this thing that he said, you were celebrating him not 20 minutes ago, and everything was the same except he said something that you could hear that wasn't on top of music. And I don't know. Like, women still think that when they're talking about these bitches and hoes, they're not talking about me. In the same way, when these male rappers are walking around talking about how broke everybody is, he not talking about me, you know.
So you're asserting that it is as prominent in the music and the culture today as it was back then?
Yeah. Like, I think because you're an old man and you don't listen
Mm.
to the music in ways that I don't listen to the music, I'm still very like, whoa.
I don't I don't listen
Like,
to the music, but I follow the politics. I listen to the people and the movement, and I see when Bootsy Badass come out his face, when a lot of when Rick Ross had that song where he was talking about drugging the woman and taking her home and enjoying that, the backlash of that versus when Ghetto Boys had an album where Bushwick Bill recounted in graphic detail how he broke into a woman's house while she was watching TV, raped her, and slit her throat. You know, I really don't,
don't
but I
confuse
could.
them tweets with reality, bro.
I'm not talking about tweets. I'm not talking about tweets. I'm talking about formal apologies that are issued by labels. I'm talking about people being dropped off tours. I'm talking about people. I'm saying, but I could be wrong. I hope that I'm not. But shit that was happening when I was coming up in terms of popular culture, people are stepping a lot lighter and people are getting called out immediately. And it's not just people tweeting about them, but there are real financial and career repercussions that didn't exist when I was, like you said, before I got old. Because I'm seeing things happen with these artists. When Fat Joe, going back to my era, who's been a misogynist and a scumbag and a racist his entire career, when he did that versus, when he was on that versus, and within less than 24 hours he was issuing apologies. That wouldn't have happened, huh?
Was that the yesterday's price is not today's price?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know why he was saying that. I didn't even know he did a versus. I can't participate.
It wasn't his verses. He just was a guest or a feature. But all I'm saying is, I know just and I have two sons, one that's in college and one that's in high school, and I hear the music, and I just talk to them, and I sometimes play songs for them from my era, and they're very much into the various XXX Tentacion and all the contemporary face tattoo rappers.
Whew.
And they hear stuff from my era. I pull out one of my old CDs and they listen to it like, wow, how did this get made? But again, I could be wrong.
We should look that up.
Because there's outliers for everything. But like I said, how many go back to 1994, 95 and tell me how many formal apologies were issued by rappers,
bro. Like saying
and I'll compile the formal apologies now, huh?
Yeah, saying I'm sorry ain't they're running back. Like, but go ahead, man. We got any questions?
Oh yeah, we can move to questions.
Man, it's 9:00, man. We rapidly approaching peak sleeping hour.
Yeah, y'all Southern, y'all have to get up and milk the mules and put the harness on the cows down in this Mississippi. I forget. I'm sorry. I'm a city. Let me stop. Sister looking at me. I make fun of.
Skipp. I don't appreciate this regional.
I know it's time. I know it's 8:51 here.
It's still snowing.
It's 8:51 where I am. I know it's 18:51 where y'all is.
Yeah, he just mad at snow, but he just mad because he still got to shovel snow.
No, not in April. It hasn't snowed in April for at least 3-4 years here in Chicago. It's just high winds right now is the hazard. But yeah. Anyway, we're gonna open this up for Q&A. I do have a couple of start questions, but
Okay.
please type your questions in the comments. Questions, comments,
Where do
and
you
or
see the
criticism.
questions at?
I'm about to put it up.
No. I'm talking about like how you seeing. Oh, it's because you the host.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bong. There you go. Can you read that? Josephus, you stated a recollection of being in your grandmother's and the experience thereof. Do you feel that your development would have been different had you been in your grandfather's lap?
Absolutely, because you got to think of what type of man my grandfather would have been to let a 15-year-old boy lay in his lap. So like, yeah, like I look forward to my grandsons. You know, if I'm old enough and blessed enough to be present with my grandsons thinking about me. When they're able to lay in my lap, I am a very different man than both my father and grandfather were. So I think the way that I'm raising my sons, the intimacy, is going to make them very different than I was. Like they don't feel a need to be tough in the ways that I felt that I needed to be. So yeah.
Well, even though I wasn't asked, I do have to say, growing up, I would get a lot of affection, hugs, and stuff from my um, the women in my family and the men in my family, including my great grandfather. They didn't no physical touching or affections. My uncles would punch me in the shoulder if I did something good, like hey, good, give you a little jab to the
Get tough.
chest or to the meat of your shoulder. That's how they showed affection. And I find that was me. Just the other day, I was going out of town, and my wife and I were getting ready to leave, and he went and hugged his mother to say goodbye. And it's like, okay, travel safely. And when he came to me to hug me, I stuck my hand out to shake his hand. And I was like, oh, yeah, I see you when I get back. And my wife was like, what are you doing? He's trying to hug you. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, just oops. So I still see that,
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's still hard for me to do that. So, yeah, but I see that my sons are evolving in ways and not having to go through the reconstruction that I had to go through based on how I was raised. So, y'all ready to move on? Wow, it's filling up fast. Okay, I'm trying to find questions, but y'all kind of, we did get some contribution. Thank you. You can make monetary contributions to this show specifically, and Black Power Media. Support our media. Any other questions, comments, and our criticisms? Let me go to this one. It's a statement that we can perhaps respond to. The reality of crime rates, broken families, sexual dysfunction is high in the Black community, I assume, or in the society. And I would have to say I agree with that, but I think whenever you have a societal issue or some type of dysfunction in a society that is high, i.e. systemic, if you don't have the proper diagnosis, you can never come up with a proper solution. So saying, oh, women are more worldly now than ever, or men ain't real men no more, or we took prayer out of the schools. So I agree that these are all problems. But if we don't understand that they're rooted in capitalism, alienation that people have, the commodification of life and all things that are truly of value, that are the problem, we have the wrong analysis of the problem. So we always end up with implementing the wrong solutions. I'll throw that out to you guys.
Yeah, my first thought was all of those are just symptoms of unmet needs. So, yeah.
And I always think about, like the solution of prayer in school, like praying don't put food in your refrigerator.
I mean, you know. Yeah. But also, I think the other thing is, I mean, when these things are just reflections of larger society too. I
Yep.
think that's the other thing. It's not like these things only happen to Black people. I it's weird to
Yeah.
me when people
Yeah.
say stuff
Very
like that.
simple
I'm not
solutions to
saying
incredibly complicated problems.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Um,
It's okay.
okay. Next, Mark wants to know, how would the dynamic change for Black men and women if socialism gets introduced to them?
Hmm.
I'll start. I think socialism would not solve. Socialism is an economic system. It is a system for just and equitable distribution of resources. So problems that arise from the concentration of wealth and the dependency and exploitation related to that would definitely be mitigated. But um, a lot of these issues go beyond economics, even though I greatly appreciate Marx's work and I am a student of Marxist analysis. I don't fully agree with dialectical materialists in terms of everything can be solved through the market, and so I think that would put us in a better position to begin to dissolve and deconstruct um, um, sexism, misogyny, and patriarchy. It will definitely get us on that road, but we have too much history of socialist policies and attempts at socialist and even communist societies that still were plagued by sexism, racism, and that. So I am a socialist. I support socialism, but socialism will go a long way to solve a lot of problems within humanity and human relationships. But I do think it would give us more resources to direct towards the problems, but they would not be a solution to the problem, to that particular problem.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
3.
Okay. Uh, if Skipp Coon, if we can get him on the air and get rid of this Josephus character. Skipp, are you working with JPS students like you used to back in the day?
Well, that's a very good question. So, yes, but also the lighthouse where I work is starting a school, and I'm the lead teacher there. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm still playing. Send me a message so I know exactly.
He froze.
I think he was saying send him a message so he would know who the person is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hook up with
And how you find Diallo?
who?
Hey you 7 here
Hey,
3
7H.
It's
her
it
3.
no, y'all don't read internet. That means hey you there.
Oh, oh,
The 7 is a
the
T
7 is a T.
and the 3 is
Okay,
also an E. Hey you there. Question. So
okay.
communal values are the answer. So are communal values the answer?
I don't know. Oh, the light just went off. Can y'all still see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if I think communal values are the answer, but I do think some community agreements, maybe some community understanding is a good foundation. Um, and not even a lot of them, like community respect. And what does respect look like? It can be very basic, but I think that's kind of where we start.
Okay. I don't know what kind of socialism y'all trying to build that isn't anti-patriarchal though. Uh, I have to say, a lot of times when we get into ideology, because I'm Pan African, I'm a socialist, I'm an atheist, I'm a vegan, with and all those things that are central to who I am, my identity, my mission, my purpose for living, there is space for patriarchy, sexism, exploitation, abuse, unjust or rigid hierarchies, limited or reactionary thinking. So don't think just because you have a larger ideology that is much better than, I'm anti-capitalist and I'm socialist. Therefore, all the other cascading problems will be solved. So yes, you can have socialism where I've actually gotten into debates with people who used to publish a socialist newspaper here, and they would want me to come and write or do workshops with the local white socialist group. They don't call themselves white; they're open to all, but it's predominantly white. And within that socialist organization, the women who were there every day working did not get as much status, standing, appreciation within the socialist newspaper or the socialist movement. So yeah, if you talk to women who are part of socialist, civil rights movements, social justice movements, if you simply talk to women who are part of these groups or within these ideological circles, they'll let you know that the men, because we are trying to, as Che Guevara said, is you can't just transform society. You have to create a new person. Well, he said a new man. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Joshua. I really appreciate you embracing and your optimistic ideas about socialism. I share them too. But yes, you simply having the title of anti-patriarchal is not the same as having the practice. So you have to implement those practices, not simply claim them. I'm a socialist anti-patriarch. How does that apply? How do you carry that out? How do you entrench that and secure that within socialism?
Yeah, some degree of othering is just human nature. You have to constantly work that thing out. Like you can't just, this is what I believe and so it is. Like that's not how humans work.
I wish it was.
Right.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, but a lot of times people believe in something. I mean, being a vegan for over 30 years, and people really believe, like, I know vegans personally who think they don't have any vulnerability to chronic diseases or, premature death because they eat a vegan diet. So people will like, yeah, if I do this particular thing or I hold this particular belief, it will make me free and immune from all the things that I come from and all the things that surround me. So questions and I'm sorry.
So they're just mighty white.
The guard. This is another comment. Atheists believe in their own theology.
Why you get him started, bro? Human. Why you get him started, human?
I have to say that's just absolutely not true. It's not true in definition or in practice of atheism. And people who make those assertions are just demonstrating their ignorance.
Just don't say nothing to him now.
Why? Hey.
Oh,
yeah, don't.
I don't have anything to say. I just think that's a strange comment considering like the things.
Well, they put the LOL there. Well, I think atheism is just like socialism.
Hey, we good, bro. Let's go to the next one.
Would put us on the path towards challenging and dismantling patriarchy.
What else we got? For the people in the comments?
Okay, let's go on. I'll just take that off for you see in the promo I made for the show. I put your atheism song. I'm working on a response track. If you haven't heard Atheism by Skipp Coon, go ahead down and stream it, download it, buy it, however music goes nowadays. All right, we're past closing time, so it's gonna be a rapid fire Q&A. See people making side comments about pain. So I think we've gotten through all the questions. We've solved all the problems. And sisters, y'all should wake up tomorrow in a oh wait, one more question. How do you practice socialism in an ultra-capitalistic system on a micro level that uplifts people? You can't. Huh?
I was just reading the question so I could process.
Well, I say there's the job of a socialist is to implement and institute socialism and to dismantle the infrastructure of capitalism. So the way you can do that is first you have to join a socialist organization and begin to organize. You have to educate your community and those around you as to what socialism is and what socialism means. You have to personally work to redistribute and justly distribute resources. Um, Businesses and enterprises, you should work to support cooperative and communal enterprises. And if they don't exist in your community, you should be working to organize them. And so the job of a socialist under capitalism is to subvert and destroy capitalism, organizing the workers, supporting labor unions, supporting and getting resources to the people. In fact, there are many socialist elements under the dominant economy in terms of housing, welfare, strengthening in terms within the electoral system and within local politics, strengthening welfare programs, food. Here we have like the Feed the People program. So redistributing resources, cooperating and sharing, which is what socialism is: just distribution of resources, cooperating and sharing. And there are many, depending on where you live, opportunities to cooperate, share, and redistribute resources that are within the group, and also gain concessions and resources from the state or from surrounding, as the Black Panthers did with the Black Panther free lunch program and things of that nature. I'm about to. So I won't hold you guys. It's 9:09. This is another episode of the Rational Radical uh, broadcast on Black Power Media. Please like, share, subscribe, do your algorithmic thing to help elevate and share. There is no revolution without an independent and strong Black media apparatus, progressive liberatory media that is not top down or hierarchically controlled or corporately funded. We are listener funded, we are listener supported. And as I say that, I'd like to give an opportunity for our guests to have the last word and take us out for the evening.
Is it gauche if I share the Lighthouse's website?
No, I was going to suggest you share all of your contact information if people wanted to continue the dialogue or keep up with you and your works.
Okay. So I would love if people could follow us or check out our website at loveblackgirls.org. Just spelled out traditionally, loveblackgirls.org. That's where you'll find all the information you could ever want to find out about the Lighthouse Black Girl Projects. There is an opportunity for you to learn about the different work that we do, and even the school that we run, where Josephus is the principal. And then you can follow us also on social, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Love Black Girls. That one is spelled non-traditionally, LUVBLKGRLS. And I am on Twitter and Instagram, Fendi Mandela. I really enjoyed being with you all this evening. Thanks a lot for having me on, Diallo. And yeah, this was great.
All right. And
right on to the real.
All right, so we'll be back. Just give me a moment. The Rational Radicals will be back next Wednesday, the 19th, April 19th, will be our next show. Stay tuned. We're very happy to be here for the Rational Radical Show. Please continue the comments. I will put the website in the comments. It's not there right now, but I definitely will put the website in the comments. And thank you to everyone. I'm sorry, Skipp, did you have any departure or you wanted to lead us out with prayer?
Yeah, I will. Thank you for giving us courage. Thank you for love. Thank you for fellowship. Thank you for relationship. Thank you for bravery. And watch over us as we move forward in doing those things that we deem necessary to make the world a place that we are fit to live in. Amen.
I'm open-minded. All right, so I'm going to start the outro, and I'll see you Wednesday after next, Skipp. And thank you again. And of course, this is an open invitation to you, Sister Natalie. Anytime you have anything you want to share, anything you need us to boost and put out, feel free. Huh?
Ain't she brilliant?
Oh, yes.
You
I take your word for stuff.
You can't do that in front of me, because if he didn't think so, I find him. I think he's probably a person of integrity, and so then he would have to be like,
No. Yeah, as soon as I get off, I'm gonna start texting Coon. Who's that damn fool? No, I'm not lying. People know, bro, Diallo. I'm the villain, so they know I would say it. People accuse me of villainy all the time, but anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you guys soon. Stay tuned for future Black Power Media projects. Good night.
Thank you.